This is the New York City FC Pregame Live. Tonight, New York City FC hosts Inter Miami in the first round of the MLS Cup Playoffs. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
And without fail, there we are. And there's Citi Field in Queens in a moment. Hey, Matty, how are you? Matty Lawrence, I'm Glenn Crooks. We've got the live commentary of this game coming up. It's a playoff game. It's the opening round of the playoffs. New York City is hosting as the 3 seed, number 6 Inter Miami visiting. Kickoff is at 7:20. Airtime on the New York City FC network will be 7 p.m. And as is the norm, we have our NYCFC pregame live here with you an hour before kickoff. And here's what we're going to cover, Matty. I've got it written right here. All right.
Oh, well, thanks for telling me live on air what we're going to cover.
No,
The people that I interview that I enjoy the most are the ones that say they don't want to see the questions ahead of time. Just talk to me.
So
you're interviewing me
Nick
now?
Cushing is one of those. Well, I'm always interviewing you, whether it's a pint or whether it's here at Citi Field, wherever it might be. The exact dimensions of Citi Field, we're going to review that. Highlights from New York City's win at Atlanta on Decision Day. That'll be nice.
Yep.
We're going to look at what Miami did on Decision Day, which wasn't so good. I'm just going to get your opinion as to whether you think that would carry over. Some of the playoff results, because this is the second to last game in the opening round. Dallas will host Minnesota. They kick off at 9:38 Eastern after our match here. And then we've got, I'll show you something from the playoffs. A couple of things from the playoffs from other teams. Nick Cushing, we're going to play a clip where he talks about, and he certainly sounds like a coach that feels like he's going to be here beyond this season, because he's talking about seeking consistency, and he'll go into depth about that. A little Gonzalo Higuain. We had a guest last week, Felipe Cardenas for The Athletic. I'm going to replay a small portion of that interview where he talks about Higuain, his struggles, and where he's at right now. Perhaps we'll get to Kleberson, who is my featured guest on my podcast, On Frame. And that's what we got. So I'm going to
So basically, because of this FaceTime Live, they're having to put the kickoff back to about 8 o'clock with that kind of lineup.
We're being very. This will be like probably more than we've ever done on a pregame live. So let's see if we can barrel through it. But I don't want to barrel. I want to take each step at a time. So look, let's get a closer look at Citi Field. There you go. The field is being watered per norm. You can see the corner of the box to our left. That's Luis Barraza. Robert Tugian jogging towards the top of the box there with a bag of balls. So it's Sean Johnson who will be in goal tonight, and Barraza will be the backup, the number 2 on the bench. But this is the way they do it in football. In warm-ups, the reserve keeper comes out and takes takes some of the first shots. And also at Citi Field, you'll notice there are lines that would indicate it's a soccer pitch. And then there's been a lot of debate, Matty, about whether what the dimensions of this field are, and it causes much consternation, as we know Yankee Stadium does too. Yankee Stadium is 110 yards long and 70 yards wide. I've confirmed that. Thomas Rongen, you know Rongen, right?
I do.
He's doing the radio commentary for Inter Miami tonight. And what he claimed, saw him earlier, that he said it's 68 yards. So I said, no, I've been down on the field and I measured it off, and it's 70.
He's saying here's 68.
He says here is at Citi Field is 68 yards. And so, first of all, there I am down on the field before the game, Matty, measuring. And this is where Thomas Rongen got a little confused. This is a hash mark and then to the corner flag. So that hash mark all the way to the corner flag is 11 yards.
Yes.
To the edge of the arc, which is painted just around the corner flag, or however you would like to describe that, from the edge of that is 10 yards. So that's where the confusion lies. The hash mark, 2 more yards to the edge of the penalty area. That's 13 yards. Times 2 is 26. The penalty box is 44 yards wide. So 26 plus 44.
We know this is
what
where
is
you
that?
fall into problems, isn't
This
it?
is,
When you start doing
but isn't it?
maths
But
live
it's
on air.
70. It's 70. So
Look,
that's
this looks wider than Yankee Stadium, I would say.
but it's not.
I know it's not. I'm just saying that it
But
seems
this
to
is
fit
the
better.
dilemma of those coming in that haven't played here
Yeah.
than before, because it does have, although this probably is a little bit easier for the opponent than Yankee Stadium,
Yes.
because it seems square, or and the way the stadium and seating is here at Citi Field for the soccer, it just seems a little bit more symmetrical. I
Yeah,
guess
it seems it looks as though it fits better. As I say, it actually looks wider. I know it's not, as you say, but also there's not a massive advantage for NYCFC because this is not their home stadium. This is not where they play all the time. I know they have done previously, but it's been only a few times. I'm sure you'll
only
hit
one
me with the stats.
Well, only one loss, and that was in a playoff game. Dome Torrent's last game as coach of New York City to Toronto, commonly known as the Ronald Matarrita.
I was going to say the grave of Ronald Matarrita is out there somewhere.
It's you have the monuments at Yankee Stadium, and then you have whatever Matarrita left over, and that was a late penalty converted by Pozuelo, and Alejandro Pozuelo no longer with Toronto. You know who he plays for, don't you?
I
Inter
do,
Miami,
yes.
and so he has been nursing a hamstring. So we expect the lineups to be published during our time here on NYCFC Pregame
But he
Live.
didn't play in their last game, did he? He didn't play in the
No.
last game of the regular season.
No, but and if you want to know the kind of, and I want to see if it's handy, what Pozuelo has done, you have to forgive me. I'm going to have to look on the wall because I want to make sure I'm exact with this. In 10 games against New York City, he's got 7 goals and 5 assists. Now, that's both at Toronto and Inter Miami. He had a brace in the last game that these two teams played, 3-2.
Look, he's an arch
3-2 win.
nemesis, if we want to say that, isn't he? He always seems to perform against NYCFC. I'll be slightly biased. Let's hope he doesn't tonight. But what we do know is he's a very good player. Forget those stats about what he does against NYCFC. He's a really good player. I really like watching him play. And if it's link up between Pozuelo and Higuain, which I think we're assuming it will be, they're pretty much on the same wavelength.
So if we look at the last game, we talk about the last game that these two played. That was the first win in 6 tries for Miami against New York City. That game in mid-August, a 3-2 victory down in Miami. 2-0, New York City defeated Miami at Yankee Stadium, which is more commonly referred to as the farewell match for Tati Castellanos. But Eber scored in that game as the heir apparent. Tylus Magno, though, was starting to fill the bill more consistently, but he suffered a shoulder separation, and we'll have more about that as we progress through this, but that's a serious injury. Tavon Gray and Alfredo Morales, they are both out of this match. Gray with an ankle, Morales with a calf injury after returning from a long absence due to injury in the match against Atlanta. So from an injury standpoint, it was a very difficult afternoon down south on decision day, despite the fact it was a 2-1 win. But Eber, he scored the game winner. Here's how you heard it on the New York City FC Network.
Eber looks lively, we'll give it that. He hasn't had any opportunities to score, which is what you want him to do as a centre forward. But as long as he holds the ball up, keeps possession, that's all you can ask.
Off the corner, deflected, and Eber finishes! Good call, Matty Lawrence. The ball was deflected off the corner. Gabby Panetta took it. There'll be another assist in there somewhere.
Collins.
And Eber was by himself at the back post, but he made no mistake about it with the first-time finish. And it is Alexander Collins with the redirected header. Wonderful play by the Peruvian center back. He scores goals. He helps goals. That he does. Alexander Collins on the assist this time. He's got 5 goals and an assist in 2022. But Eber finishing, and that's his 9th goal. I mean, it's not like he's been out of goals. I mean, the guy's been scoring rather frequently, and he'll more than likely get the nod tonight. When we get the official word, we will post it for you. But I can't imagine Tylus Magno being prepared for this one, although there was hope. But a separated shoulder will generally mean sometimes it mean a prolonged absence.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
Look, whoever the guy was talking there obviously knew exactly what he was talking about.
Would be the guy describing the goal?
Yeah, you as well.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
But look, Eber, if you get him the chances, he will score goals. That is for certain. He's not the all-round player that Tati Castellanos is. He doesn't have the ability that Tylus Magno does either. Yes, he's still recovering from that, long injury. But that was a good finish. I know it looks simplistic, but it came at him pretty quickly. He adjusted his feet. He just used a broad surface of his right foot. It was a good finish, and I'm not over-elaborating. That's for sure. It was a good finish. But he needs to get those opportunities. He is not going to hunt the ball down and dribble past three people and smash it in the top corner from 25 yards. He's not Tati Castellanos, and I think it'd be foolish of us to compare the two. But he's that fox-in-the-box striker. You get him chances and he will score. That is for certain, as he did there. And look, when you've got people like Carlins around you as well, let's hope that he does get chances as well. It's just such a different type of NYCFC team with whether it's Castellanos as a 9, I know he's not there now, or Tylus Magno or Eber. All three of them are completely different centre forwards.
So Eber is going to be given the task of being the leader of that front line for New York City in all likelihood tonight in the playoffs. The playoffs. Well, New York City's been in the playoffs quite consistently since their first year, 2016 through now. It's 13 overall games with a record of 4-6-3. They've played in 10 playoff series and are 5-5. Of course, coming off the run last year to win their first MLS Cup. For Miami, they don't have that rich playoff history. Just one playoff game, and that was in the COVID year. It was I believe MLS called it a play-in game, so it wasn't even necessarily a proper playoff, but it was altered. They were in 11th place and played in a playoff game, and they got routed by Nashville 3-0. So that's their only playoff game. And, Matty, I want to ask you, they're coming off a decision day loss to Montreal, and we know how good Montreal is, and we get to see it every week now, and they won their opener against Orlando City 2-0. So the winner tonight here at Citi Field is going to be up at Stade Saputo on October the 23rd. But we can talk over this, too. I'm going to play the 3 goals conceded in a 3-1 home loss to Montreal last week, and I just wonder what you think. So here's the first one. Drake Callender, he's gotten a lot of rave reviews, but in this instance, a poor first touch, and you'll get a better look at it from behind the goal in a moment. But this is dreadful, and it's just 5 minutes into the match.
Yeah, it is. Look, they were poor in this game. I guess the question is, does it affect you moving into the playoffs? I don't think it does at all. The playoffs are a one-off game. It's just 90 minutes. Anything can happen. Yes, it's not going to feel good because you've lost. And
here's Mihailovic, who just dribbled through 5 players, and then Lassi Lapalainen scored.
But this isn't a surprise to us. We know that Miami can't defend. They've conceded 56 goals in 34 games for a reason. It's something like 1.65 goals per game they've conceded. They're not very good. This is embarrassing.
Kai Kamara just dribbling past Damian Lowe
as
with
though
ease.
They're not there.
Yeah, it was, and then Kamara's going to.
And he only had one boot on as well, apparently.
Well,
but yeah, look, they're not good defensively.
He's going to call his family, I think, to say he scored. Let's see what. It's for those who watch Get Smart, that the shoe phone, man. It was the first cell phone. It was well ahead of its time. That comedy series from the 1960s, before Matty Lawrence was born. I was well in by then.
You were 33 at the time, so. But look, they're not good defensively. I know I've been a bit flippant, but they're not. They've conceded that many goals for a reason, because not only do they not defend as a defence, as we just saw there, they don't defend all over the field. Higuain is not going to be running around all over the place, making life hard for Chanot and Martins and Carlins if that is the formation that they line up with. We know that. But they are very dangerous into Miami. But look, if you're NYCFC, it doesn't come, I don't want to say it doesn't come much easier, but you'd much rather be playing into Miami than Philadelphia or Montreal or probably even Cincinnati. They concede that many goals because they are porous. They are not good defensively. You just showed those clips. And it's not the first time you've seen, terrible defending like that from Inter Miami. It's happened throughout the season. There's if you concede 1.65 goals per game on average, it means you need to score 2 to win. It makes it very, very difficult.
Well, here's a note from Mr. Cullen. Really, really hope Pozuelo isn't playing because he's well aware of what Pozuelo has done against New York City FC. Gonzalo Higuain, and we're going to get to him a little bit later with Felipe Cardenas replaying something from our pregame live last week from an article Felipe wrote for The Athletic. But Higuain has scored 5 times in the last 6 games, 14 times in the last 16 matches. So we'll get to that in a moment. I wanted to maybe just briefly review some of the other playoff games too, Matty, and one that certainly interests New York City supporters and those who follow the Eastern Conference was FC Cincinnati's come from behind win over the Red Bulls 2-1. And the game-winning goal, and again, we could talk over this, I tweeted this and it got a lot of reaction because I thought there was a sense of irony here where Brandon Vasquez, who has no chance to be called into the men's national team, it's pretty much already been declared. He's a striker for Cincinnati. Had 18 goals in the regular year and just really came on this season. Now, Aaron Long, a center back for the Red Bulls, who has played a lot under Greg Berhalter for the U.S. men's national team. And one of the reasons Berhalter has him there, one would assume, considering what he has said about a Tim Ream, for instance, is that he wants a guy with pace at the back or players with pace at the back because they want to play a high line so they can recover from that. So with all that in mind, here's the goal. This is the game-winning goal. That's Sergio Santos who wins the ball and plays it across. And if you look below, that was Vasquez just jetting past Aaron Long. We're going to get another look at it here in a minute. Vasquez there celebrating. You see that goal, pretty vital, 86th minute of that game at Red Bull Arena. Here's the slow motion. So look at the bottom of your screen. That's Vasquez. And there's Long accelerating, then using his body to try to halt them. And he got a good 2 or 3 yards ahead of him.
He did, but almost paradoxically, that's not about pace. That was about him switching off. You see that he isn't running almost until too late, or he's not sprinting until too late. I'm not saying.
But if he turned on the accelerator, Vasquez kept separating himself.
If we watch that again, he totally switches off. You can see it. He doesn't even know where Vasquez is. That's the big problem for me as a former centre half. He has no idea. He's caught ball watching. It's not until Vasquez has already accelerated past him that Long starts trying to sprint. It obviously from a state, well, not quite stationary, but a jogging start. It's very hard to get sprinting within a yard or two.
So you're destroying my clickbait. Come on.
No, I'm not. Yes,
that's what came to mind to me.
Aaron Long's not quick. We know that. Vasquez is quicker. But that, for me, was really naive defending. The fact he gets caught ball watching. And look, it is going to be, I think it will be Aaron Long and Zimmerman as the 2 centre halves. I really, really liked Aaron Long when he was playing with Tim Parker at the Red Bulls. They had a really good partnership, great cohesion. Then he got injured. I'm not entirely convinced now. And certainly
something
when you
has changed.
Like
is it because of the injury? He had an Achilles. It's much like the other center back who tore his Achilles is Miles Robinson.
Yeah.
And there'd be no question there. It would have been Robinson with Walker Zimmerman. So Cincinnati comes back and wins that game, Matty, 2-1, which sets up what I think is a real interesting matchup. Cincinnati at Philadelphia. So at Philadelphia, Jim Curtin is the head coach. The previous 4 years, Pat Noonan, this is his first year with Cincinnati. The previous 4 years, he was the assistant to Jim Curtin. So I had Pat Noonan on with me on my Sirius XM FC show recently. So I asked him about Curtin's influence on him.
I think there's a lot of similarities just in our personalities and how we handle, things, whether it's players, staff members, others around the club. What I took from Jim is just his ability to be calm in pressure moments, to be in control in pressure moments, to be prepared, in the biggest moments. He was a true leader and, is a true leader. Seeing and being able to work with him day to day and pick his brain or just see how he operated and getting the most out of the people around him. I was able to do that and certainly benefited from it.
Well, the key there, maybe, Matty, is just being composed in big situations. Players need to do that, but so do coaches.
Yeah, look, I'm not doubting Jim Curtin's coaching ability. What I've always loved about Jim Curtin is that his composure. He speaks very well. He comes across as a very good man manager. It will be really intriguing to see two guys who know each other incredibly well, and Noonan obviously knows the Philadelphia side incredibly well as two, in a one-off game, a one-off playoff game. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
But look, Philadelphia are much the better side than Cincinnati. What did they do? Scored 20 more goals than Cincinnati, probably conceded 20 or 30 less, probably won 20 more points than Cincinnati. As a whole, Philadelphia are the better team. But when that's, whether you want to call it the beauty of playoffs or not, I don't like playoffs. I've always said that. I think you should always be judged over a body of work, over 34 games. And over 34 games, Philadelphia Union are by far and away a better team than Cincinnati. But it doesn't mean, that's why we love the game, it doesn't mean that Cincinnati can't go there and beat Philadelphia.
I'm Glenn Crooks along with Matty Lawrence. We're getting set for New York City FC here at Citi Field. Get another look at Citi Field here. And Inter Miami jogging onto the field to warm up prior to this match. Inter Miami, the opponent here in the opening round of the MLS Cup Playoffs. The winner gets CF Montreal. As we move along, and part of our pregame show, which kicks off at 7 o'clock on the New York City FC network, is our chat with Nick Cushing, the head coach for New York City FC. He's the interim head coach, but when I spoke to him this week and asked him about the present and a bit about the future, he didn't hesitate to respond with how this club now and as it moves on needs a certain level of consistency. Let's listen in.
I think my main aim for this team moving forward is, and our aim as a staff is, to be more consistent. Of course, 7 years in the playoffs shows consistency, but once you deep dive into the seasons, especially the 3 years that I've been here on the staff, the highs have been really high, but the lows have been far too low. And I think if we can bridge that gap and make the lows, because the nature of the league is there is going to be there's moments when it's going to be a little bit streaky with wins and losses. If we look at last year and this year, if those disappointing periods are reduced and are maybe not as aggressive, we definitely finish in the top 2 in the league. And I think this year is the same. We went into the break in number 1. We then went into the period of July, August in the top 2, and we fell away because of the injuries and because of the performances and ultimately because of the results. The aim has to be going forward is to make the consistency over the whole season, and then we will get a really strong league position.
So listen to this, Matty. So they're coming in, New York City, having won 3 in a row. And if you look across the hot and cold nature of 2022, New York City, 4 different times this year, they've had streaks of at least 3 wins. But on 3 other occasions, they've had streaks of at least 4 games without a win. And then there was that 1 win in 10-game stretch before they won 3 straight coming into the playoffs. So interesting how he said the lows have been too low, and that would be an example, 1 win in 10.
Well, absolutely. When you've only won 1 game out of 10, that's incredibly low. That is deep diving. That is relegation form if there was. I like the positivity from Nick Cushing. I like the fact as well that even when he started almost going towards the injuries as an excuse, he then followed that up with, no, it's performances and results. He realises that. That's why we love MLS, because of the parity. You can only win 1 out of 10, but then you can win 4 games in all competitions, obviously including, the Campeones Cup. They've won the last 3 league games. I don't think there's a league in the world where the highs can be that high and the lows can be that low, or you can lose as many games as a team like Inter Miami have done, but still have an ability to be the best team in MLS because you still have an ability to win MLS Cup. To have conceded 56 goals in 34 games, so the -9 goal difference, and still have the ability to try and win MLS Cup. It wouldn't happen anywhere else as far as I am aware. There may be a league somewhere that I don't know about, but you can be bad, you can be incredibly inconsistent, you can concede lots of goals, and technically you can still be the best team in MLS because you're there, you're in the playoffs. That's the beauty of MLS. I guess the beauty, you call it that. I don't see how you can be that bad throughout a season over a body of work and still have that ability to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just me. That's my thoughts on the playoff system.
We have 3 Brazilian flags and Brazil being declared by Lucas. And Brazil, 9 of the last 16 goals, or 9 of the 16 goals since the departure of Tate Castellanos, have been scored by Brazilians. And Gabi Pereira leads the way there with 4. And he has been a major contributor recently. But so has Gonzalo Higuain, the great Higuain, who has announced his retirement. Inter Miami, 5 goals in his last 6 games, 14 in his last 16 games. So it's been a pretty remarkable streak for him, and that's something that New York City is going to have to be aware of. I'm going to play a brief clip from our NYCFC pregame live last week. Felipe Cardenas with us from The Athletic. He had just written a feature on Higuain, and he talked about things that maybe weren't known by others, and part of it is because he speaks English and Spanish and can listen to Argentinian radio, which I remember saying, Matty, we need to learn our Spanish so we can listen into some of these shows. But here's Felipe with both Matty and I.
A lot of what I do, I spend a lot of time watching these players here in MLS, these Latino players, South American players. They spend a lot of time doing interviews in their home countries. And there are just nightly shows, daily shows, panels of journalists covering the football in Argentina. And they get these guys on their shows all the time. And I was surprised to see Gonzalo Higuain was a regular on these shows in Argentina, very often talking about football all the time. Just like he's very knowledgeable as far as the tactics go, the players go. He's very up to date. And then there was just a shift over the summer, and he started talking about online bullying and how it affected him and how it really did change the way he approached his own life, his dedication to the sport. He was very open that his mother battling a 5-year cancer battle that she lost in April of 2021 was just, it kept him from his best. It kept him from being really dedicated and locked in with Inter Miami. I think he was also just very frustrated with, honestly, the level of play of his teammates. He's coming from playing at the highest level. I mean, the players that Gonzalo Higuain has played with over his career, even just most recently with Juventus, is ridiculous. I mean, World Cup winners, Champions League winners, Ballon d'Or winners. You name the players, he's played with them. And I think there was a bit of a surprise to see that wasn't what he was going to get here. I'm sure he didn't think that, but it did bother him some. So I think from the outside, we saw a player that was antagonistic, that wasn't in shape, that was angry at his teammates, berated his teammates. And if you dig deeper, you found a human being that was struggling mentally, personally, with a lot of issues off the field, his mother's sickness. And when she passed away, it just really, he told an interviewer in Argentina, he hit rock bottom. And I think for someone to admit that, it takes a lot to say that publicly and to realize that. And he did rededicate himself. He accepted the fact that, to your point, he was not performing well. He didn't look like a professional footballer. He didn't look like a DP, that's for sure. And he was benched. He was benched by Phil Neville. There's no other way to sugarcoat it.
All right, that's Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic with us last week regarding Gonzalo Higuain, who is in the starting 11 tonight, as expected, but so is Alejandro Pozuelo. So off the hamstring, it'll be Pozuelo in the starting 11 for Miami. And then here is the New York City 11 as we wrap up NYCFC pregame live. Tinnerholm in for Gray. It's Maxi Morales and Nico Acevedo starting in the midfield, and Eber will be up top for New York City in place of Tylus Magno. That means Park starts the game on the bench. Final thoughts, Matty, before we break.
Well, they've got hurt, NYCFC, by playing on AstroTurf down in Atlanta. Yes, a great result, but losing some really important players. It's certainly leveled these two teams up.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens in a few minutes. In about 15 minutes, 7 o'clock Eastern. That's when our pregame starts, presented by Ford on the New York City FC Network with head coach Nick Cushing. And then kick off at our live commentary at 7:20. But it's all on the network. It's also Sirius XMFC. It's also the NYCFC app and the TuneIn app. No excuse. All those different ways to listen. I'm Glenn Crooks for Matty Lawrence. Chris Sakonis will be with us as well. Enjoy the game, everybody.